Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Pennell, and I am the Oklahoma DECA State Vice President of Career Development.
And I'm Beery, the Oklahoma State Vice President of Finance and Hospitality.
And this FLC workshop will be over how to be a better chapter officer.
So this workshop is for existing DECA chapter officers and potential DECA chapter officers. Everybody can benefit from the content we are about to share.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation, we're just going to go over a little bit of an icebreaker for you guys. So if you've ever played the game telephone, this is essentially what we're going to be doing. And the point of telephone is pretty much just to be a good communicator. And that's something that we're going to talk about a lot in this presentation. So if you're unfamiliar with the game telephone, essentially you'll have a group of people in a group or a line, and the first person will think of a sentence, a word, or a phrase and whisper it to the next person. Then that person will whisper that phrase to the person next to them, and so on and so forth, and get until you get to the last person. Once you get to that person, they will speak the sentence or phrase or word out loud and see how close they were to the original sentence, word, or phrase. The point of this icebreaker is just to highlight how important communication is and how necessary it is if you want to succeed in the game or in real life. Obviously, you're probably going to say the wrong thing if you're not paying attention to what the person before you is saying, or if you're not articulating well whenever you're speaking to the person that comes after you. So you just want to make sure that you're communicating well and effectively, and we'll get in more about this further on in our presentation.
Okay, so let's get into what it means to be a chapter officer. For starters, it is a big commitment and it takes a lot of responsibility. Being a chapter officer means that you are in a leadership position. You will have to step up and lead your chapter to make sure that you all can meet your goals. Likewise, you will be representing your chapter. You'll be representing your chapter, your school, and DECA as a whole, and all of the members in it. Being a chapter officer means that you also have to be able to engage with members. Engaging with members is probably one of the biggest parts of being a chapter officer.
Now, let's talk about communication. As I mentioned before, communication is really important, but it's not only important for when you're on a team or in your DECA chapter, but it's something that's important for life. And it's something that you're going to need to know how to do well and effectively for the rest of your life. Communication is key to being a great chapter officer. If you're not already a DECA chapter officer, you can start by communicating or talking to your advisor. You can ask about the application process, the requirements, things like that. And you're already setting off a good precedent because you're communicating well with your advisor and you're trying to figure out what needs to be done so that you can get to this position. If you are already a chapter officer, you probably already know a little bit about communication because I'm sure you had to do some to get to where you are. But it's not something that just stops once after you get admitted. Communication needs to be very important throughout your whole chapter officer experience. You need to understand the requirements and the meaning of teamwork, and that means communicating effectively with the members of your team. This also means communicating effectively with your advisor. The people that you're working with don't know what you're thinking or feeling, what opinions you have, or what ideas you have. So you need to be able to communicate those so that you guys might work a little bit better toward reaching your goals, or you guys work together as a team and can understand each other better. Communication, however, is a two-way street and is not only talking to people, but also listening to people. As we discussed with our telephone game, it's important to pay attention to what other people are saying so that you can further convey those ideas and you can grow off of them and really understand what to do next. And this is really important for good teamwork and for working well in a team. You need to communicate by voicing your opinions, voicing your ideas, but also listening to others and taking theirs into consideration as well. Because if you don't, then you're probably not going to get that much done, and you and your team will not work cohesively together.
Okay, let's get into characteristics that great chapter officers possess. For starters, like we just mentioned, communication is number one. You have to be able to communicate effectively. Secondly, integrity. So you have to be able to do the right thing when nobody is watching. Empathy, you need to be able to understand and connect with your members to make sure that you are advocating for their wants and needs in the best way possible. You have to have learning agility. You have to be flexible and able to take what comes at you. Another huge one is self awareness. So, making sure that you're not taking up too much of the air in the room, making sure that you're giving room for your DECA members to voice their opinions and ideas, and making sure that you take those into consideration. And then, lastly, determination. You have to be determined to work hard to help your chapter meet your goals.
So now let's get into something that people might not entirely like talking about, which is conflict. I'm sure you probably know a little bit about conflict, maybe if you've already been working in a team or you've come into a couple problems with your best friend, maybe your younger sibling, or even a teacher that is giving you a bad grade that you don't want. Conflict is inevitable and it is everywhere. Little conflict, big conflict, you're going to run into it no matter what. And being on a DECA chapter officer team is no different. But what is important is how you deal with this conflict, how you address it. The golden rule, as we all know, is respect, right? And this is no different. You want to make sure that you're being respectful to yourself and to others. This essentially means that you're not going to be dimming down another person's opinion or feelings on certain things, just like how you don't want them to be dimming down on your opinions or your feelings about certain things. Just respect each other and also know that you guys are in a mature setting and you need to come about solving this conflict the best way that you can in the easiest, most mature way possible. Being mature would mean that you're not trying to spend too much time on something that could cause further issues or increase the conflict. So don't focus on the little things that could probably make the situation worse. Ideally, the goal is to resolve the conflict and get over it as quickly as possible so that you guys can go back to working well on a team. Speaking of working well, you need to work with your team. You need to work with your advisor. You need to work with the people that you're around so that you can try and come up with an effective solution as quickly as possible. This kind of ties hand in hand with communication. Again, people don't know what you're thinking or feeling. So if you and a fellow team member are having some conflict or you guys are butting heads about a certain goal or a project that you're working on, they're not going to know that you might disagree with them or that you might be having those problems if you don't talk to them about it. And additionally, you guys are not going to be able to work through it if you just let it sit there. You have to talk about it and you need to be respectful and mature whenever you do so. If you try talking to your team or the person that you're having conflict with and that evidently doesn't do anything, the next step might be to talk to your advisor to ask for help with the situation. This could be something as little as talking to your advisor and saying, hey, I'm having some problems with this person, or I'm having some conflict in my team. What do you think I should do? Or it could be something as big as, hey, I need to work this out with this person. And I'd really appreciate it if you were there helping me do that. If you could arrange a meeting with us so that you were there moderating and you could help us come to a solution quicker without further escalating the situation. You can also ask your fellow team members for help. So maybe they'll have some insight that you don't, and they'll be able to help you in ways that you weren't able to think of. Asking for help is something that a lot of us maybe don't like to do, but it could really help the situation. Finally, as I stated before, conflict is going to be everywhere. And this is just because you're on a team, maybe with a bunch of people you like, or maybe a bunch of people you don't like, conflict's going to be there. And you're going to have to figure out how to work around that and do so in an effective way so that you guys can get back to working on a team well. You guys are not going to get anything done. Nothing successful is going to come from your team if there's some conflict there or some unresolved issues. So you need to make sure that you're communicating well and you're trying to work through the conflict in a respectful way.
Okay, so to wrap up our workshop, I think one of the biggest takeaways we hope that you all have is that being a chapter officer is solely about your members. So you are there to represent and advocate for your members and your chapter. If you all have any questions or thoughts, you can find both Natalie and I's contact information on the Oklahoma DECA website. Thank you all so much for attending our workshop.
Bye.